Hey you guys, Ocean Shaw here, and I am here to do a cartoon picture of Cassidy. We all remember Cassidy. Um, I'm a fan of Cassidy, so I'm gonna show you how to trace it out first. Then we're gonna color it in and everything, but I need to pull up a picture of Cassidy. Because if I don't have a picture up here, I won't remember what they look like. I mean, I'll remember what I'm supposed to put in it, but I am going to. Um, I'm going to I got this marker. Hold on for a minute. I got text. I got text. Okay, and I can. You know me. I love getting ready for the holidays. So I'm giving. For me, getting ready for the holidays is listening to an audio book. Because if I talk while doing this, all you gonna see just mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. So I have to play an audio book to keep me from talking like I'm doing right now, so in view of this state of affairs. And my brother out there watching wrestling, fussing at the TV, so you're gonna hear him a couple of times too. Okay, so let's trace out Cassie. I already traced it out earlier. Um, I had a free hand of certain parts of her face, but let's go and get started. I'm gonna do the ear first. And like I said, I wrestle with Tourette's. So if you see a mistake that I make, don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you wrestle with Tourette's just like I do, then you can't help it. I'm doing her earring. Okay, so that was her earring that I just finished the. Let me see what I want to do now. I'm gonna draw this because she had her hair wrapped up. And put that up top. That's gonna be whatever she had holding up her hair with. That's what Let's see. I'll put this right here. Ass, I said. Oh, ass. Unutterable ass. I seem to exist only to go about doing preposterous things. Why did we ever leave the thing? Hopping about looking for patents and concessions in the craters of the moon. If only we'd had the sense to fasten a handkerchief to a stick to show where we had left the sphere. This of her hair. It is clear, meditating Kabor. They are intelligent. One can hypothecate certain things. As they have not killed us at once, they must have ideas of mercy. Mercy, and at any rate of restraint. Possibly. This is a cartoon. Always remember, it's a cartoon. It's not a portrait, okay? I used to make portraits. I used to do portraits all the time. But then I think, I just grew bored. I grew bored making portraits. My confidence in you. Why didn't I stick to my play? That was what I was equal to. That was my world and the life I was made for. I could have finished that play. I'm certain it was a good play. I had the scenario as good as done. And conceive it, leaping to the moon. Practically, I've thrown my life away. That old woman in the inn near Canterbury had better sense. I looked up and stopped in mid-sentence. The darkness had given place to that bluish light again. The door was opening, and several noiseless Selenites were coming into the chamber. I became quite still, staring at their grotesque faces. Then suddenly my sense of disagreeable strangeness changed to interest. I perceived that the foremost and second carried bowls.
One elemental need at least our minds could understand in common. They were bowls of some metal that, like our fetters, looked dark in that bluish light. And each
okay, so I get
whitish fragments.
that
All
down.
the cloudy pain and misery that oppressed me rushed together and took the shape of
she got little details on her shirts.
So
I'm not making the actually details that was on her shirt. I'm just doing little small patterns. You can do little small patterns too, or you can make the details. Don't matter to me. Okay, so get that down. See what I want to do here. I guess I gonna, try to put everything together for her skin complexion. She got a nice complexion. I don't know. Do she get a tan? I don't know what she really look like, without the makeup and stuff. But I just try to do the best I can, I guess. If they can want to connect, let me connect this right here. Yeah, connect there. Let me see. Yeah, it's gonna work on her color. Let's see what I want to use for the color.
Absence of self-consciousness. We ate and presently drank like tramps in a soup kitchen. Never before nor since have I been hungry to the ravenous pitch, and save that I have had this very experience, I could never have believed that, miles out of our proper world.
I don't want to use this Premier Color Peach. This Premier Color Peach. And what else do I want to use?
They stood about us, watching us, and ever and again making a slight elusive twittering that stood to suppose in the stead of speech. I did not even shiver at their touch, and when the first zeal of my feeding was over, I could note that Cavour too had been eating with the same shameless abandon.
Yeah, I'm gonna use my crazy Crayola Crazy Art toasted toffee, and I want to use the Premier Color White. I'm gonna see what shade that gonna come out to be. I'm gonna put white down first.
Chapter 14.
White first.
The First Men in the Moon.
Let me see what it looks like with this.
All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.
Kind of got a pink color to it. So how would it look if I add? I got sunflower right here too. Let me see something.
Chapter 14. Experiments in Intercourse. When at last we had made an end of eating, the Selenites linked our hands closely together again, and then untwisted the chains about our feet and rebound them, so as to give us a limited freedom of movement.
I think I'm gonna go and try it with the sunflower.
One of their queer heads came down close to my face, or a soft tentacle hand touched my head.
The peach.
I don't remember that I was afraid then or repelled by their proximity. I think that our incurable anthropomorphism made us imagine they were human heads inside their masks. The skin, like everything else, looked bluish, but that was on account of the light, and it was hard and shiny, quite in the beetle wing fashion.
Yeah, I'm gonna add the white to it, so I'm just going to, before I work on any details, just do those things first. And put the white down. Try not to smudge the picture. It's easy to smudge.
The Selenite who untied me used his mouth to help his hands. They seem to be releasing us, said Cavour. Remember, we are on the move. Make no sudden movements. Are you going to try that geometry? If I get a chance.
Like I said, be careful with the Premier Color because it will smudge. It will smudge. And it will leave a big stain on your picture. It's very pigmented.
I say seem to be, because as eyes were at the side and not in front. One had the same difficulty in determining the direction in which they were looking as one has in the case of a hen or a fish.
Okay, so
They conversed with one another in their
now I'm gonna
meaty
put the
tones
sunflower.
that seemed to be impossible to imitate or define. The door behind us opened wider, and glancing over my shoulder, I saw a vague large space beyond, in which quite a little crowd of Selenites were standing. They seemed a curiously miscellaneous rabble.
And this
Do
is
they
the
want us to
crazy
imitate
art
those sounds? I
sunflower
asked
too.
Moore. I don't think so, he said. It seems to me that they are trying to make us understand something. I can't make anything of their gestures. Do you notice this one who is worrying with his hand like a man with an uncomfortable collar? Let us shake our heads at him. We did that, and finding it ineffectual, attempted an imitation of the Selenites' movements. That seemed to interest them. At any rate, they all set up the same movement. But as that seemed to lead to nothing, we desisted at last, and so did they, and fell into a piping argument among themselves. And one of them, shorter and very much thicker than the others, and with a particularly
I need a
wide
shower.
mouth, squatted down suddenly beside Cavour, and put his hands and feet in the same posture as Cavour's were bound, and then by a dexterous movement stood up. Cavour, I shouted. They want us to get up. He stared open-mouthed. That's it, he said. And with much heaving and grunting, because our hands were tied together, we contrived to struggle to our feet. The Selenites made way for our elephantine heaving
Get
and
the
seemed to
shit.
twitter more volubly. As soon as we were on our feet, the thick-set Selenite came and patted each of our faces with his tentacles and walked towards the open doorway. That also was plain enough, and we followed him. We saw that four of the Selenites standing in the doorway
Try not to
were
press
much
too
taller
hard
than
too,
the
because
others, and clothed in the same manner as those we had seen in
if you
the
wrestle
arena,
to rest like me,
with
you go
spiked round
automatically
helmets
press
and
hard on
cylindrical
me.
body cases.
You go find yourself
And then
doing
each of the four carried a gun with spike and guard made of that same dull-looking metal as the bowls. These four closed about us, one on either side of each of us, as we emerged from our chamber into the cavern from which the light had come. We did not get our impression of that cavern all at once. Our attention was taken up by the movements and attitudes of the Selenites immediately about us, and by the
almost
necessity
forget
of
about
controlling
that.
our motion, lest we should startle and alarm them and ourselves.
Well, I
with
did
some
forget. I
excessive
just remembered.
stride. In front of us was the short, thick-set being who had solved the problem of asking us to get up, moving with gestures that seemed
Okay, so
almost
now I'm going to put the peach there.
intelligible to us,
It's the
inviting us to follow him.
premier color
His
peach.
spout-like face turned from one of us to the other with a quickness that was clearly interrogative.
And
For
I'm
a
gonna use
time, I
my
say, we were taken up with these
after
things.
doing that, I'm gonna
But
use
at
my
last, the great place
crazy
that formed
art.
a background to our
What's the color
movements
that
asserted
burned?
itself.
Toasted
It became
toffee.
apparent that
After
the
that.
source of such, at least, of the tumult of sounds which had filled our ears ever since we had recovered from the stupefaction of the fungus, was a vast mass of machinery in active movement, whose flying and whirling parts were visible indistinctly over the heads and between the bodies of the Selenites who moved about us. And not only did the web of sounds that filled the air proceed from this mechanism, but also the peculiar blue light that irradiated the whole place. We had taken it as a natural thing that a subterranean cavern should be artificially lit, and even now, though the fact was
Like I said, you got to
my
rest.
eyes,
You
I
can't
did
help
not really
the
grasp
movements
its
that you
import
make.
until presently the darkness came.
I know I can.
The meaning and structure of this huge apparatus we saw I cannot explain, because we neither of us learned what it was for or how it worked. One after another, big shafts of metal flung out and up from its center, their heads traveling at what seemed to me to be a parabolic path. Each dropped a sort of dangling arm as it rose towards the apex of its flight and plunged down into a vertical cylinder, forcing this down before it. About it moved the shapes of taters, little figures that seemed vaguely different from the beings about us. As each of the three dangling arms of the machine plunged down. There was a clank, then a roaring, and out of the top of the vertical cylinder came pouring this incandescent substance that lit the place, and ran over as milk runs over a boiling pot, and dripped luminously into a tank of light below. It was a cold blue light, a sort of phosphorescent glow, but infinitely brighter, and from the tanks into which it fell it ran in conduits athwart the cavern. Thud, 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 thud came the sweeping arms of this unintelligible apparatus, and the white substance hissed and poured. At first the thing seemed only reasonably large and near to us.
Okay, so I got that down. The next step I want to use is I just want to put like one shade of brown on it, the crazy odd brown. You know, add a little more color to it. But I'm not going to digging it out or anything. I'm just going to just put a shade down.
What can it be for? Gavor's blue-lit face was full of an intelligent respect. I can't dream. Surely these beings, men could not make a thing like that. Look at those arms. Are they on connecting rods? The thick set selenite had gone some paces unheeded. He came back and stood between us and the great machine. I avoided seeing him because I had guessed somehow that his idea was to beckon us onward. He walked away in the direction he wished us to go and turned and came back and flicked our faces to attract our attention. Gabor and I looked at one another. Cannot we show him we are interested in the machine? I said. Yes, said Gabor. We'll try that. He turned to our guide and smiled, and pointed to the machine and pointed again, and then to his head, and then to the machine. By some defect of reasoning, he seemed to imagine that broken English might help these gestures. Me look 'em, he said. Me think 'em very much, yes. His behavior seemed to check the Selenites in their desire for our progress for a moment. They faced one another. Their queer heads moved. The twittering voices came thick and liquid. Then one of them, a lean, tall creature, with a sort of mantle.
Okay, so I got that down. The next step I want to use is I want to start putting a little features around her face. Not a lot of features, but like a little features around her. But let's see, I don't know what kind of features. What color should I use?
He began to shake his head violently. No, no, he said. Me not come on 1 minute. Me look at him. Isn't there some geometrical point you might bring in apropos of that affair? I suggested as the Selenites conferred again. Possibly a parabolic.
I'm going to use this brown again on certain parts of her forehead.
One of the 4 army men had pricked him with a goad.
And you know.
I turned on the goad bearer behind me with a swift, threatening gesture.
I don't think that.
This and Gavor's sudden shouting clearly astonished all the Selenites. They receded hastily, facing us. For one of those moments that seemed to last forever, we stood in angry protest, with a scattered semicircle of these inhuman beings about us. He pricked me, said Gavor with a catching of the voice. I saw him, I answered. Confound it, I said to the Selenites. We're not going to stand that. What on earth do you take us for? I glanced quickly right and left.
And let me see.
Across the blue wilderness of cavern, I saw a number of other Selenites running towards us. Broad and slender they were, and one with a larger head than the others. The cavern spread wide and low and receded in every direction into darkness. Its roof, I remember, seemed to bulge down as if with the weight of the vast thickness of rocks that prisoned us. There was no way out of it. No way out of it. Above, below, in every direction was the unknown.
Now, I'm going to get the Premier color white. I'm going to go over certain areas with it.
And we two, unsupported men. End of chapter. Chapter 15 of The First Men in the Moon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina.
And I'm going to get
by H.G. Wells. Chapter 15. The Giddy Bridge.
I'm going to try to use this berry. This is a crazy hot berry for the blush.
My clearest impression was that there was nothing to put my back against, and that we were bound to be surrounded and killed. The overwhelming folly of our presence there loomed over me in black, enormous reproach. Why had I ever launched myself on this mad, inhuman expedition?
Now let me see what else do I want to do. Her makeup.
His pale and terrified face was ghastly in the blue light. We can't do anything.
This is the premier color black that I'm going to put around her eyes with. And try not to smudge the picture because, like I said before, it will smudge.
And then at the fresh Selenites who were coming to help their fellows. If I had my hands free, it's no use, he panted. No, we'll go. And he turned about and led the way in the direction that had been indicated for us. I followed, trying to look as subdued as possible, and feeling at the chains about my wrists. My blood was boiling.
Okay, so I'm not going to draw no eyelashes because I don't see the sense of it, especially since it's just a cartoon. And I'm going to take the pink and go a little bit on top right here with the pink.
At first, they marched parallel with us and at a respectful distance, but presently they were overtaken by three others, and then they drew nearer until they were within arm's length again. I winced like a beaten horse.
And I'm going to get the gray for her eyebrows because her eyebrows doesn't look black, completely black, so I'm just going to fill it in with gray. But then I'm going to come back over it again to see what do I still want the gray to be there or not.
The dejected droop of his shoulders, and our guide's gaping visage, perpetually jerking about him, and the goat bearers on either side,
now,
watchful yet open-mouthed.
I'm going to use this crazy art white to try to blend everything out. Let me get this side first because I almost forgot about that side.
And it was full of that same bright blue luminous stuff that flowed out of the great machine. I walked close beside it, and I can testify it radiated not a particle of heat. It was brightly shining, and yet it was neither warmer nor colder than anything else in the cavern. Clang, clang, clang. We passed right under the thumping levers of another vast machine, and so came at last to a wide tunnel, in which we could even hear the pad, pad of our shoeless feet, and which, save for the trickling thread of blue to the right of us, was quite unlit. The shadows made gigantic travesties of our shapes and those of the Selenites on the irregular wall and roof of the tunnel. Ever and again, crystals in the walls of the tunnel scintillated like gems. Ever and again, the tunnel expanded into a stalactitic cavern, or gave off branches that vanished into darkness. We seemed to be marching down that tunnel for a long time. Trickle, trickle, went the flowing light very softly, and our footfalls and their echoes made an irregular paddle, paddle. My mind settled down to the question of my chains. If I were to slip off one turn, so, and then to twist it, so. If I tried to do it very gradually, would they see I was slipping my wrist out of the looser turn? If they did, what would they do? Benford, said Cavour, it goes down. It keeps on going down. His remark roused me from my sullen preoccupation. If they wanted to kill us, he said, dropping back to come level with me, there is no reason why they should not have done it. No, I admitted. That's true. They don't understand us, he said. They think we are merely strange animals, some wild sort of moon-calf birth, perhaps. It will be only when they have observed us better that they will begin to think we have minds. When you trace those geometrical problems, said I, it may be that. We tramped on for a space. You see, said Cooper, these may be Selenites of a lower class. The infernal fools, said I viciously, glancing at their exasperating faces. If we endure what they do to
I'm
us,
going to fill in her
we've got
eyes.
to endure it,
I'm going to use the
said
Premier
I.
color black to fill
There
in
may
her
be others
eyes.
less stupid.
Then again, I don't know. I
This is
might
the
want to
mere
use
outer
dark
fringe of their
brown.
world. It must go down and down. Cavern, passage,
I'm
tunnel,
going to use this
down
Premier.
at last
Do I
to
want
the
to use
sea,
this?
hundreds of miles
I
below.
don't.
His
I
words
mean,
made me think of a
everybody
mile or
had,
so of
almost
rugged
everybody
tunnel that might
who
be
don't
over
have
our
colored
heads
eyes have,
already.
well, you know, like
Most
colored
like a
eyes.
weight dropping
Their
on our
eyes are
shoulders,
dark. Usually it'd be like
away
dark
from the
brown,
sun and air, I
but just
said.
look black.
Even a mine half a mile
So
deep is stuffy,
I don't know, kind of debating a little bit.
This is not anyhow. It's probable ventilation. The air would blow
I
from
just
the
put it
dark
down.
side
I
of the
mean,
moon
I can
to
always
the
change it.
sunlit, and all the carbonic acid would well out there and feed those plants. Up this tunnel, for example, there is quite a breeze. And what a world it must be. The earnest we have in that shaft.
I'm gonna get the crazy
Those
art white.
machines. And the goad, I said. Don't forget the goad. He walked a little in front of me for a time. Even that goad,
Okay,
he said. Well, I was
now
angry
what
at
I'm
the
gonna do
time,
next
but
is,
it was perhaps necessary we should get on. They have different
I
skins
guess I'm
and
gonna
probably
fill in her
different nerves.
lips.
They may not understand our objection, just as a being from Mars might not like our earthly habit of nudging. They'd better be careful how they nudge me. And about that geometry, after all, their way is a way of understanding too. They begin with the elements of life and not of
That was
thought.
the peach, and now I'm
Food,
using the berry.
repulsion,
But I'm not
pain,
gonna fill it in too
these
good. I'm just
striking
filling in enough
fundamentals.
that there's a
There's no
difference
doubt
in
about
the
that,
skin.
I said.
The color of the lips, not the skin. It's
He
the
went on to
skin.
talk of the
Going
enormous
back
and
to the
wonderful
crazy
world
art
into
white.
which we were being taken. I realized slowly from his tone that
Okay.
even now he was not absolutely in despair at the prospect of going ever deeper into this inhuman planet burrow. His mind ran on machines and invention, to the exclusion of 1,000 dark things that beset me. It wasn't that he intended to make any use of these things, he simply wanted to know them. After all,
Let me
he
see
said,
now.
this is a tremendous occasion. It is the meeting of two worlds. What are we going to see? Think of what is below us here. We shan't see much if the light isn't better, I remarked. This is only the outer crust. Down below, on this scale, there will be everything. Do you notice how
Now I'm gonna
different
use
they
this
seem
crazy
one
art
from
black to
another?
color her hair
The
with. So
story we shall take back. Some rare sort of animal, I said, might comfort himself in that way while they were bringing him to the zoo. It doesn't follow that we are going to be shown all these things. When they find we have reasonable minds, said Gabor, they will want to learn about the earth. Even if they have no generous emotions, they will teach in order to learn. And the things they must know, the unanticipated things. He went on to speculate on the possibility of their knowing things he had never hoped to learn on Earth. Speculating in that way, with a raw wound from that goat already in his skin. Much that he said I forget, for my attention was drawn to the fact that the tunnel along which we had been marching was opening out wider and wider. We seemed, from the feeling of the air, to be going out into a huge space. But how big the space might really be, we could not tell, because it was unlit. Our little stream of light ran in a dwindling thread and vanished far ahead. Presently the rocky walls had vanished altogether on either hand. There was nothing to be seen but the path in front of us and the trickling, hurrying rivulet of blue phosphorescence. The figures of Kavor and the guiding selenite marched before me, the sides of their legs and heads that were towards the rivulet
I might
clear and bright blue.
come back
Their
over
darkened
there
sides,
again,
now that the
but the
reflection of
Premier
tunnel
color
wall
black,
no
cause
longer
this
lit
black
them,
don't look like
merged indistinguishably
it's
in the
just that
darkness
black,
beyond. And soon I perceived that we were approaching a declivity of some sort, because the little blue stream dipped suddenly out of sight. In another moment, as it seemed, we had reached the edge. The shining stream gave one meander of hesitation, and then rushed over. It fell to a depth at which the sound of its descent was absolutely lost to us. Far below was a bluish glow, a sort of blue mist, at an infinite distance below, and the darkness the stream dropped out of became utterly void and black, save that a thing like a plank projected from the edge of the cliff and stretched out and faded and vanished altogether. There was a warm air blowing up out of the gulf. For a moment I and Kavor stood as near the edge as we dared, peering into a blue-tinged profundity, and then our guide was pulling at my arm. Then he left me and walked to the end of that plank and stood
trying to make myself more comfortable.
Then when he perceived we watched him, he turned about and went on along it, walking as surely as though he was on firm earth. For a moment his form was indistinct, then he became a blue blur, and then vanished into the obscurity. I became aware of some big shape looming darkly out of the black. There was a pause. Surely, said
I need sharpness.
one of the other Selenites walked a few paces out upon the plank and turned to look back at us unconcernedly. The others stood ready to follow after us. Our guide's expectant figure reappeared. He was returning to see why we had not advanced. What is that beyond there? I asked. I can't see. We can't cross this at any price, said I. I could not go 3 steps on it, said Kavor, even with my hands free. We looked at each other's drawn faces in blank consternation. They can't know what it is to be giddy, said Kavor. It's quite impossible for us to walk that plank. I don't believe they see as we do. I've been watching them. I wonder if they know this is simply blackness for us. How can we make them understand? Anyhow, we must make them understand. I think we said these things with a vague half-hope the Selenites might somehow understand. I knew quite clearly that all that was needed was an explanation. Then as I saw their faces, I realized that an explanation was impossible. Just here it was that our resemblances were not going to bridge our differences. Well, I wasn't going to walk the plank anyhow. I slipped my wrist very quickly out of the coil of chain that was loose, and then began to twist my wrist in opposite directions. I was standing nearest to the bridge, and as I did this, 2 of the Selenites laid hold of me and pulled me gently towards it. I shook my head violently. No, go, I said. No use. You don't understand. Another Selenite added his compulsion. I was forced to step forward. I've got an idea, said Kavor, but I knew his ideas. Look here, I explained to the Selenites. Steady on. It's all very well for you. I sprang round upon my heel. I burst out into curses. One of the armed Selenites had stabbed me behind with his goad. I wrenched my wrists free from the little tentacles that held them. I turned on the goad mirror. Confound you, I cried. I've warned you of that. What on earth do you think I'm made of to stick that into me? If you touch me again. By way of answer, he freed me forthwith. I heard Kavor's voice in alarm and entreaty. Even then, I think he wanted to compromise with these creatures. I say, Edford, he cried, I know a way. But the sting of that second stab seemed to set free some pent-up reserve of energy in my being. Instantly, the link of the wrist chain snapped, and with it snapped all considerations that had held us unresisting was mad with fear and anger. I took no thought of consequences. I hit straight out in the face of the thing with the goat. The chain was twisted around my fist. There came another
Okay,
of those
so
beastly
what is
surprises
wrong
of
with my
which the
camera?
world is full.
It's blurry.
My mailed hand seemed to go clean through him. He smashed like some softish sort of sweet with liquid in it. He broke right in.
I don't know, I might just leave her hair like that because it took a lot out of me, but I am going to go over her skin again. I'm going to go over her skin again because certain areas look, I think, need to be darkened.
For an instant, I couldn't believe the whole thing a dream. Then it had become real and imminent again. Neither Cavor nor the other Selenites seemed to have done anything from the time when I had turned about to the time when the dead Selenite hit the ground. Everyone
This is
stood ready for
brown.
us too.
I think just regular color brown.
That arrest seemed
But
to last at
yeah,
least a second after the Selenite was down. Everyone must have been taking the thing in. I seem to remember myself standing with my arm half retracted, trying also to take it in. What next? Clamored my brain. What next? Then in a moment, everyone was moving. I perceived we must get our chains loose, and that before we could do this, the Selenites had to be beaten off. I faced towards the group of the three goat bearers. Instantly one threw his goat at me. It swished over my head, and I suppose went flying into the abyss behind. I leaped right at him with all my might as the goat flew over me. He turned to run as I jumped, and I bore him to the ground, came down right upon him, and slipped upon his smashed body and fell. He seemed to wriggle under my foot. I came into a sitting position, and on every hand the blue backs of the Selenites were receding into the darkness. I bent a link by main force and untwisted the chain that had hampered me about the ankles, and sprang to my feet with the chain in my hand. Another goat, flung javelin-wise, whistled by me, and I made a rush towards the darkness out of which it had come. Then I turned back towards Cavor, who was still standing in the light of the rivulet near the gulf, convulsively busy with his wrists, and at the same time jabbering nonsense about his idea. "Come on," I cried. "My hands," he answered. Then,
now we'll get this
realizing that I dared not run back to
Premier
him,
color
because my
white
ill-calculated steps might carry me over the
and
edge,
go back
he
on
came shuffling towards
same
me,
areas
with his
of her
hands held
face
out before him.
that I went
I gripped his
before
chains at
with
once
it.
to unfasten them. "Where are they?" he panted. "Run away. They'll come back. They're throwing things. Which way shall we go?" "By the light. To that tunnel, eh?" "Yes," said I, and his hands were free. I dropped on my knees and fell to work on his ankle.
Okay, so now I'm going
Where
to
came something, I know not
get my
what,
crazy art white,
splashed the
and
livid
we'll
streamlet
use
into
this to smooth it out with.
Far away on our right, the piping and whistling began. I whipped the chain off his feet and put it in his hand. "In with that," I said, and without waiting for an answer, set off in big bounds along the path by which we had come. I had a nasty sort of feeling that these things could jump out of the darkness onto my back. I heard the impact of his leaps come following after me. We ran in fast strides, but that running, you must understand, was an altogether different thing from any running on Earth. On Earth one leaps and almost instantly hits the ground again, but on the moon, because of its weaker pull, one shot through the air for several seconds before one came to Earth. In spite of our violent hurry, this gave an effect of long pauses in which one might have counted 7 or 8. Step, and one sword off. All sorts of questions ran
Now,
through my mind.
I'm going to get the
Where
brown
are the
again
Selenites? What will they do? Shall we ever get to that tunnel? Is Cavor far
and just
behind?
go
Are they
just
likely
like
to
this.
cut him off?
Sometimes I have to
Then whack,
do it several
strike,
times.
and off again for another
Several
step.
times.
I
But
saw a
eventually,
Selenite running in front of me, his legs going exactly as a man's would go
if it
on
get
Earth.
too late,
Saw him glance over his shoulder,
I'll cut the
heard him
video
shrieking
off
as
and
he
then
ran
I'll
aside out of my way into
come
the
back
darkness.
and
He
do it
was,
over
I
again.
think, our guide, but I'm not sure. Then in another vast stride, the walls of rock had come into 4 strides, I was in the tunnel, and tempering my pace to
It's starting to look the way I want it to look now.
and stopped and turned back. And plug,
It's looking the way I want it to look.
door came into view.
Now, it's
Splashing
more
into the
lighter
stream of blue light at every
on this
stride,
camera
and grew larger and blundered
than
into
what I'm
me.
looking at on the
We stood
paper.
clutching each other.
Eventually, I will get a well camera, a new well camera,
We were both very much out of
because
breath. We spoke in panting, broken
I don't,
sentences.
it doesn't look like what it looks in person. So
Nonsense, I cried. It was that or death. What are we to do? Hide? How can we? It's dark enough. But where? Up one of these side caverns. And then, think. Right, come on. We strode on and presently came to a radiating dark cavern. Gavor was in front. He hesitated. and
but
chose
this is
to
all I'm
come
gonna do
out and
now
see the
because,
good hiding.
believe it or
Went
not,
towards it and turned. It's
it was
dark,
great in
he said.
person.
Your legs and feet will light us. Your weapon
I had a
will
lot of
let us
people
stop.
give me compliments about what I be doing,
But
and I
two
appreciate it
sounds,
too.
and in
Appreciate the
particular a sound
compliments.
like a clanging gong, advancing up the main
And
tunnel
let me
became
see.
audible. It was horribly
I guess I
suggestive
gonna
of a
do something with
tumultuous
this.
pursuit. We made a bolt for the unlit side cavern forthwith.
If I
As we ran along it, our way was lit by the irradiation of
I said I'm gonna
Gavor's
do
legs.
like another
Its
picture
light
of Tamar.
panted. They took off our boots, or we should fill this place with clatter. On we rushed, taking as small steps
You can
as we
fill
could to
in
avoid
certain
stumbling
details
into the
whatever
cavern.
color you like because I
After a
usually
time, we
don't.
seemed to be gaining on the
I usually
uproar,
just don't,
and
do
we
like
muffled,
what the
it
picture
dwindled
shows.
and died away.
I don't know why, I just don't.
I stopped and looked back, and I heard the pad of Gavor's feet receding. Then he stopped also.
See,
Edward, he whispered, there's a sort of light in front of us. I looked and at first could see nothing.
I'm gonna see some
Then I
of this
perceived
Premier
its
Color
head and
Black. Do I
shoulders
want to
dimly
use
outlined
this?
against a fainter darkness. I saw also that this mitigation of the darkness was not blue, as all the other light within the moon had been, but a pallid gray, very vague, faint white, the daylight color. Gavor noted this difference sooner than I did, and I think too that it filled him with much the same wild hope. Bedford, he whispered, and his voice trembled. That light, it is possible. He did not dare to say the thing he hoped. There came a pause. Suddenly I knew by the sound of his feet that he was striding toward that power. I followed him with a beating heart. End of chapter.
I think the Premier Color Black, yeah, it's coming out the way I want it to look in the hair part.
Chapter 16 of First Man in the Moon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording has been wordsmithed out of South Carolina. First Man in the Moon by H.G. Wells. Chapter 16. The light grew stronger as
Yeah?
we advanced. In a little time it was nearly as strong as the phosphorus
What you say?
on Gavor's legs. Our tunnel was expanded.
Okay, hold on a minute.
And this new
That was
light
my
was no
brother.
longer independent. I
Need
perceived
something out of my
that set
room.
my hopes leaping and bounding. Gavor, I said, it comes from above. I am
Alright,
certain
I'll
it
be right
comes from
back.
above. He made no answer, but hurried on. Indisputably, it was a gray light, a silvery light. In another moment we were beneath it. It filtered down through a chink in the walls of the cavern, and as I stared up, drip, came a drop of water upon my face. I started and stood aside. Drip, fell another drop quite audibly on the rocky floor. Gavor, I said, if one of us lifts the other, he can reach that crack. I'll lift you, he said, and incontinently hoisted me as though I was a baby. I thrust an arm into the crack, and just at my fingertips found a little ledge by which I could hold. I could see the white light was very much brighter now. I pulled myself up by 2 fingers with scarcely an effort, though on earth I weighed 12
Alright,
stone.
so
Reached to a
I
still
almost
higher
finished with
corner of the
Cassidy.
barn.
Matter of fact, it looks like I am finished with Cassidy.
I stood up and searched
Cassie.
the rocks with my fingers.
The only thing I gotta do now is her earring.
Upwardly.
I don't know what color her earring
I
is.
said to Gilmore, "Can you jump up to my hand if I hold it down to you?" I wedged myself between
But I'm
the
gonna try
sides
the
of the
pumpkin
cleft,
orange color.
rested me and looked
Cause I don't know what the pumpkin orange color look like.
I could not see Gilmore.
Oh, let me see. How will it look on her skin?
As he crouched with
It's
his
pumpkin color.
then whack, and he was
No,
heading to
don't
my
think
arm,
no difference.
no heavier than a kitten. I lugged him up
Do
until
I
he
really
had a
want to put
handle
this
on the
on?
ledge.
Yeah,
He couldn't release me.
I'm trying to hurry up.
"Confound it," I said.
I didn't know it was this late.
You're on the move. And so set myself in earnest to the
All right, so
For
this is a
minutes I
picture of
climbed
Cassie.
steadily, and then I looked up again.
I have a habit calling her Cassie. I don't know why. Well, I gotta have a calling her Cassie, but this is my cartoon picture of Cassie.